Welcome everybody to this open book event in association with Stand Up Poetry Festival. So my name's Helen. I'm going to introduce Imtiaz. Imtiaz will read from her poems, then we'll have a question and answer session, and at the end you can ask your own questions. So at that point, if you have questions, you can put them into the chat. So I'm sure you all know of Imtiaz already. She's a poet, artist, video filmmaker, awarded the Queen's Gold Medal for Poetry in 2014. She is Chancellor of Newcastle University. Her 7 collections of poetry, which are all published by Bloodaxe Books, include Over the Moon, and the latest is Shadow Reader. Her poems have featured on BBC Radio, television, the London Underground, Glasgow billboards, and Mumbai buses. She has had 11 solo exhibitions of drawings and scripts, and she directs video films, many of them for non-government organisations working in the area of shelter, education and health for women and children in India. So Imtiaz, it's over to you if you'd like to share some of your poems with the audience.
Thank you, Helen. I'll read from my latest book, Shadow Reader, that Helen mentioned. It's mostly to do with who takes possession of a story and how it changes depending on who takes possession of it. But this started, the spine of the book is something that happened when I was in my 20s. I was taken to see a lot of astrologers. One of them was a shadow reader who measured my shadow, made calculations, picked an ancient scroll out from behind his back without looking back, and predicted my future. I didn't believe a word that he said, but even the mind of a non-believer can be possessed and occupied and colonized. In the year of my death. When I was 25, the shadow reader said I would live to a ripe old age. He licked his finger, flicked a page, and told me the year of my death. That year has arrived. And the book is full of images of the Paradise Garden. As you can imagine, the idea of the Paradise Garden it's an image that's quite strong in my mind, and that image is carried through this book. When you come away from the rose garden, your eyes have changed color. You arrive in the city of pointing fingers to keening sirens and beeping phones, the clicking, the screens all on. And you still have petals falling from your mouth. You cross from corner to corner, a fugitive in this time. Your eyes are watercolor. In them, the city and all its workings have been stamped with guilt. The script blazes over the walls of the meat market, but the streets are brambled, thorned, and on the illuminated borders, there are drops of blood. But the roses are savages that will eat you alive, given the chance. The map of this country is made of scars. They will put the body on a slab for examination. No, out of respect for this body, there will be an inquiry to determine. No, there was some jostling, 2 sides clashing. Both sides were at fault. No. Seen from above, it looks like grief, wrapped in a shroud of dust. But the blood has seeped so long and deep, It could be a ring of rust. The wounds will be washed and sewn up to look like a map of a country that does not exist. They will carry the body as if it is a homeland they have lost. On their shoulders, they will carry the coffin. Yes, the mourners will lift their hands to honor her. Yes, there will be a bullet. There will be jostling. Yes, this is a wound opening. This is a country being torn again and again, a person falling apart. Yes, and everyone watching. Yes, did we watch this happening? Yes. Did anyone see? No. Witness. Sometimes the truth is not a beacon, but a small flame, or only the light of a phone falling on the face of a witness. Face to face. Who is telling this? The one who gives the gift or the one who takes? Can the writer be forgiven by the one who is written? Does the warp look back at the one who is weaving and say, this is not how I remember it, not how it happened at all? Who belongs in this thing you're making? The rose garden throws away its symmetry and lifts off the page with a mind of its own. The wind spreads rumors and a new language blows in, written in a script that looks like your heart beating. Windows tilt to catch the truth at a different angle. Our shadow lies on this page, reader. Your hand slides off parchment to touch human skin. Open the other face. Look in. And the image of the paradise garden is carried over into the idea of the carpet, the weaving of the carpets, which are based on the paradise gardens. Loom. They are weaving the world and everything that lives in it. They bend over the loom, reading it like a book that will teach them the structure of tulips, crocus heads, roses. If the knot is wrong, they feel the mistake as a glitch in the bones. When their fingers bleed, the borders leak ruby and scarlet. Trees blossom out of season. Fruit fills and ripens as if time means nothing, as if pain is only the start of beauty. They are weaving so hard and fast, you would think their lives depend on it. They take the tears off their children's faces to fill up the watercourses. They are weaving their times in thread, teaching the loom the way of the world. It hums with business, heaves with the blasphemy of human bodies, hosts of angels, swarms of midges. Songbirds turn into bombers, gazelles to armored tanks. On every border there's new danger, drones overhead, walls blasted to rubble. Messages appear on the backs of buses. Neon signs call for help. Clubbers spill out, looking for Ubers, demanding bacon rolls or the first train home, vomiting at corners. The one who is tied to the rock by a chain watches the vultures circling down for the succulence inside, the liver. Starlings fall out of the sky, and the weavers bury them in silk. They make up spells and blessings to hold things together till morning, when the children get up out of sleep, bare feet on the floor, doors banging open to let the green back in. It smells like split melon. This is not a prayer mat. It is the prayer. The weaver makes a pitch. This is the work of many hands. It contains all of paradise. eaten by moths in one small corner. For you, special price. For the girl on the Elizabeth line, standing by the door, the way young people do, as if a seat is a waste of life. You are lost in each other. His hand in your hair, he's speaking softly into your ear. You stand quite still, head down, listening. Then your face begins to do that terrible thing where it looks like paper being crumpled before it's thrown away because the poem doesn't work and the page is cruel. In another life, you would shake his hand off your neck and know how it feels to be touched with respect. But the doors open at Tottenham Court Road, and he steers you out with the flat of his hand on your back, and the people in the carriage try not to look at each other. Where you belong. You can squat in this room if you don't say a word. You can stay in this town if you pay for a room. You can go on this train if it's off peak. You can speak your mind if you change your look. You can have your chance if you don't expect luck. You can be in the group if you get enough likes. You can live with family if you toe the line. You can keep your children if we countersign. You can enter this church if you quote the book. You can open the book if you close your mind. You can save our time if you follow the rules. You can play a role if you buy the mask. You can take on the task if no one else wants it. You can ask the question if you never offend. You can belong, but only if you don't stay too long. You can end it now or start over again. You can follow the signs but never turn back. You can see you've run out of time and years. You can leave in tears or go with a laugh. You can take your clothes, but leave your shoes and that attitude behind. It does you no favors, and you can do us a favor. Don't change your mind. And uh, I read you this one. I was sitting in the bar of the Station Hotel in Hull one day and imagined seeing Philip Larkin sitting at a far table drinking beer. And I wondered, would I go up and speak to him? Never. Would he even see me? Probably not. I'd be a kind of an unwelcome blur at the edge of his vision. So I began to imagine him as a young man, and I even began to construct his imaginary profile on a dating app. Swiping left on Larkin. Here he is younger, his shoulders thinner. She flicks a finger, swipes left. He is dismissed without a flicker. If they pass on the street, she sees a boy trudge by with a book and satchel under the arm, on the way to a lifetime of drudge, easy to overlook. In the edge of his eye, she is a blur between staying or dying, a whiff of abroad, the chaos of prams and infants teething. At the end of every birth is grieving. He takes the dark for a walk, his light on a leash, through the sputtering streets of a town caught in the act of drowning. From a window, a curtain is waving, but his back is turned. Shops shut up and shutters come down on the chatter of living the guttering years. All roads lead to a leaving. He goes into the bar of the Station Hotel, sits for a while. When he leaves a pale ring on the table. Gold spills out of basements over his feet. He walks down a street and out of his name. Beyond rumor and fame, a flurry of letters blown into gutters, the glitter of language on cobbles, his words remain. hard as knuckles, bright as believing or half believing. At the end of the world, there is always the sea, and it's breathing, swiping right, across a blue screen to something beginning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Imtiaz. And I'm sure the audience enjoyed those poems. I can see from the reaction of many people that they did. If I could ask about another of the poems that you've just written, which was Face to Face. When you've written about real people or real situations, has anybody ever said to you, this is not how I remember it? And if they have, how did you react to that?
I'm sure there are many poets and many writers here today. And I think any of us who've ever written about, say, family will have heard these words. That's not how it happened, but I remember it a different way, because as many people as there are, people remember events quite differently. So I think the first contact, the first way that happens is very often with your own family, who remember things differently. But also that expands to be, you know, the whole world, the whole way that the media sees things. It brings me back to that whole question of who remembers it and how do we remember? How do we choose? With what lens are we choosing to remember it? Our art, our storytelling, our films have been fed to us, and mostly it's come one way, say from America, from our literature, from the literature that was taught in our schools. And this is actually the time to take all that back.
Thank you. When you are writing, do you have an ideal reader in mind? Do you have someone in mind who will be reading and responding to poems?
I do. I mean, really, I'm writing to my own inner reader. But yes, there are people I ask to read the poems, but I'm not actually writing for them. It really has to be bigger than that. It has to be you. It has to be, in this book, the shadow reader is hanging over my shoulder, and the shadow of the reader is falling on the page. Really, what I know, and the reader that I'm imagining, is that once the poem is out there, it's out of my hands. It doesn't belong to me anymore. In fact, so much of these poems is about things belonging or not belonging. And I really believe that once the poem's gone and being published, it's gone out of my possession. And then it belongs to the person who reads it, the person who reads it aloud. Before I let it go, I read poems aloud to make sure that there's music in it. But someone else may read it in their minds quite differently. You might have imagined a poem read quite differently from the way the poet reads it. And then the reader's own voice. I mean, I would very often wish that a reader might read my poems aloud and read them in their own voice with their own music. And so that's what I mean when the shadow of the reader is falling over my page when I'm writing. That is an unknown, a future, a person I may not even know yet, but who will read those poems and respond. And any interpretation, what I mean when I write the poem can change in that reader's mind.
Thank you. If I can ask a related question, what is your writing process? Do you have a writing routine? Do you write every day at a set time? Do you write in a notebook? Do you type your poems? How do you go about writing on a regular basis?
I'm sitting here on the 12th floor of a very high building, and I can look out over Parliament Hill and Primrose Hill and other places. And that's lovely. But before I start writing, I have to go down and put my feet on the ground and feel, solid ground beneath my feet. So I do go out in the morning and walk in the street, go for a coffee, sit in a coffee shop. Very often I'd be at a station, and I'm really stealing conversations and words and bits of thoughts that are passing by. Even just the way the light changes on the street when a bus goes by, things that I hear, I'm eavesdropping most of the time. Poets are thieves, I think some of you will know this. We're thieving all the time, bits of words that other people say. And I definitely want to hear the conversation on the street. And then I go back and I don't start writing right away, but I let I carry around bits of paper, mostly A4 sheets, and might write a line or might forget my paper and write something on a piece of tissue. So when I come back, I empty all my pockets and bags and collect all the bits of lines and then write them down somewhere. I handwrite. I can't think on, unless I'm using my hand. And the sound of the writing, even on the page, the sound of a drawing on the page, all of those things matter to me. So it's a physical thing for me. So I get together all these bits of lines and put them somewhere, and maybe later, in the best time really for me is in the night. I might start looking at a poem at about 11 o'clock at night and start working on a line, and before I know it, it's 4 in the morning and I'm still working on that one line. I think that's probably something familiar to a lot of the writers here, that time just stops. And the best time for that really for me is the dead of night, the middle of the night. So I do a lot of my writing at night. I mean, there's so many other bits to the process, the working on it afterwards, the fact that it's never, very rarely, as a poem, something that's going to come together at once. You can put away a line and it comes back a year later and becomes something else.
Thank you. Finally, before I open up questions for the audience, I'd like to ask if you have any advice for people who are writing poetry. Would you, for example, advise people to do a master's in creative writing or something like that?
Would I recommend? Sorry?
Would you recommend, for example, that people do a master's in creative writing or something like that?
Well, there are great courses, but I think, it starts much more basically than that. I think the first thing I'd say is, before writing, read a lot. Read and see what it is that you enjoy, what it is that you like about other people's writing. If you hate it, why do you hate it? If you like it, what is it that's there that you enjoyed in it? What was it that caught you? And then I'd say, put all that aside and find what is in your own voice, the thing that nobody else can do, the thing that only you can tell, and write that, because that's something that can never be replaced, your own voice. And yes, after that, if you find that there are things that you feel are worthwhile and want to keep, I'd say start sending things to magazines and see if some editor is interested in publishing them. But don't be disheartened if there's not an immediate response to your poems, and people don't immediately, rush and say, well, these are amazing and you are brilliant. when I started off, it took about 10 years before anyone even noticed that I was writing. Just put the poems out there, let them live in the world. Don't be in a rush, let it take its time. I know that's a hard thing to deal with, a hard idea to deal with, but they take time to sit in the world. And also, I would say, enter competitions, especially if they're free competitions. It gives you an idea. Don't compare yourself to the person who wins the competition, because that's their style, and it's not that they are better than you, that they won the competition. It's that the judges at that point thought that poem worked for them, and the composition of the judges, the frame of mind of the judge can change things completely. But just start entering and see if the poems that do rise somewhere to the top, somewhere along the way, the recognition may begin to come. I mean, I'd say use those putting the poems out in the world a bit before you decide that you're going to give your life to, and your time. Your time is a precious thing. Do all those things. I hope it's not a kind of disheartening thing that I'm saying, but it takes time.
Thank you. I'm sure that was very helpful to any writers who are in the room. We do have a few questions from the audience. If you have a question, can you please put it into the chat? So the first question we have is from Cara, and Cara says, can you talk a bit about the idea of a shadow reader and Paradise Garden, and references to illuminated manuscripts?
Right. Okay, the shadow reader, there are several layers to that shadow reader. The shadow reader was the actual human being who read the shadow, but that is, as I said, just the thing that I used almost jokingly to make a kind of spine for the things that I really wanted to talk about, which is the communication. How do we communicate? Who do we communicate with? And for me, my shadow reader is, I mean, the shadow to start with is what the shadows we live with are the huge shadows that are carried through all of us through life. The shadow of loss, grief, the portent of our own brief lives. And so through the book, there are all these shadows. And I was thinking also about Rilke, who has a line about let your shadow, the shadow of God he was talking to, let it stretch and let me dance within it. Stretch to be large enough for me to dance in it. So there are positive aspects to the shadow and the shadow reader as well. The shadow reader, of course, is you, the people who will read or hear these poems afterwards. And that's a huge thing for me, which is, why am I writing these poems? Of course, it's because there is no choice. I have to write these poems. I would have to write them even if there were no reader. But the shadow readers are the witnesses. They're all of us, living in this world and seeing what we are seeing, and deciding daily how we are going to live together with it and how we're going to react to what we are seeing. Of course, there's a definite political aspect to the writing, the poems that I'm writing, because I really believe that everything we do is a political act. The air we breathe is political. The water we drink, look at our polluted waters. So I believe that every act is political. So this concept of the shadow reader for me is including the reader inside a political act as well. It's about being witness.
Thank you.
Hope that answered the question. I'm not sure if I answered all of it. Oh, the idea of, there were other parts to that question about the illuminated glint, the illuminated manuscript. I was thinking of miniatures and the fact that there are many things going on at the same time. There's the beauty of the illumination and the script, but there's also the fact that there is blood on the borders.
Thank you. A related question is from Rothio. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Many of your poems, even the ones from the early 2000s, are really current. And were you expecting history and geopolitics to be so cyclical when you started writing?
Rafia, thank you. That's just such a lovely question. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is that poems kind of speak across time. And you're right, some of the poems, not in Shadow Reader, but other poems from a long time ago, a poem called They'll Say She Must Be From Another Country, for example. They're poems that I wrote, as I said, a long time ago, but when I look at them today and read them today, people think that I've written them today because there are things there, unfortunately, which, the poem's time comes back and it takes on, also poems take on new meanings as time passes, very often new meanings, but also, unfortunately, very often some of those more political poems, you feel we've gone back in a lot of ways. So yes, I think a lot of poems do have a kind of timeless relevance as well. And I feel that when I read them. So I do go back and read a lot of the old poems.
Thank you. Different topic. Maya has asked, please tell how you became so actively involved in directing films. Does it differ in how you see the world compared to writing poetry?
Ah, that's interesting. Now, the films I make, Maya, they have a message. They have one specific message, unlike the poems. The poems go in circular movements and think around a subject and help me to understand the subject. But the films were to do with specific, usually for non-government organizations. They were to do with, say, helping children on the street or telling the police not to round up street children and put them in reform homes, or to do with food and shelter and education. So there was a specific purpose in the films that I've made. And I see those in a way as quite a separate activity from writing the poems or doing the drawings. But at the same time, the reason I got involved with films, and you asked that, is that I'm a person who thinks in images. The image is the thing. Very often a poem starts with an image. For me, like an image of eggs in a wire basket that I have in a poem called Living Space. And for me, that image becomes something that a poem can grow around, but because the images are so strong for and the marrying of image and words is such a precious thing to me that it seemed almost self-evident that I got involved with making video and film and audiovisual and combining my love of the image with the words. And I do love film. I love every minute of being in an editing room. I love scripting. the idea of what is the image that speaks most clearly within the film. So it is something that I would never want to stop doing.
Thank you. We have a question from Susanna, who says your line, spells and blessings to hold things together, and your description of your magpie process makes me think of poets as weavers. What are your tools to balance awareness of the world with its overwhelm? How can we keep weaving?
Sorry, I didn't get the last sentence.
What
How
are
do you
your
balance?
tools to balance awareness of the world with its overwhelm? How can we keep weaving even as our fingers bleed?
Oh, lovely question. Susanna. Is that Susanna Fitzpatrick? That question could only have come
Yes.
from you.
Yes, hi.
A lovely question and a complex one. How do we balance? What are the tools to balance the dreadful things going on around us and how we deal with that, the spells and blessings? I mean, I think that's how we're living, at least how I'm living. I wake up raging at the radio every morning. And that rage somehow, by some spell or blessing or some method, some tool, has to be turned into a thing that makes sense, or a thing that adds something to the world, or adds something to the conversation. And what are the spells and blessings for me? It is hearing the voices of people in the world, of seeing daily that there are good things happening too, in spite of all that we have to deal with and all the things seething in our minds that we have to write about. There must be a way of taking it and weaving it and blessing it into something that's bigger and better than the fury. I hope that's begun to answer the question. Yeah, our own, and writing, just the putting the words on paper is a kind of calming thing. And we can, be angry, yes, but there's a calm in the writing, and for me, there's a calm in the drawing as well, a kind of meditation. Making order, putting order on things in our own small way very often helps for me. Before I start, I clear my desk. Everything has to be exactly where I want it. I can't start working, I can't start writing until everything is clear on my desk and in my mind. And I could never work in a space that isn't cleared, and maybe that's what's happening with my mind as well.
Thank you. We've come to the end of questions from the audience. So if you do have a question, please put it into the chat. Imtiaz, can I ask if you feel the poetry by women is different in any way from poetry by men? And do you think it's more difficult for women to be heard and become established as poets?
Well, I think poetry, where do poems start? A poem starts, poetry starts with the heartbeat, the blood rushing through the body. That's where poems begin. What is the rhythm of a poem? It's a bodily rhythm. And so, yes, as far as women's bodies are different from men's, yes, there would have to be some difference in the poems. in what's written. I just believe that everything starts in the body, and we are different people. Every human being is going to have, and that's actually what happens. Every human being has a different poem to write, a different way of writing the poem. So it's not just men and women. I feel it's all of us. Each one of us has a different, why is our fingerprint different from anyone else's? That's the difference that we all have. So yes, the differences are there. Was it harder? Is it harder for women to be heard? It's always harder for women to be heard. Men have dominated. I mean, as much as there's a colonizer, men have dominated through history, whether it's art or poetry or literature, or the right to speak. And it's not just in history, it's happening now. It's happening in households that are probably our neighbors, that there are women who are being silenced. Yes, so we know that's happening. So it is harder for women to be heard. Maybe, yes, we do have to work harder at being heard. In some places it's changed, in some places it's not. Certainly as a young poet, I was often, asked weird questions by male poets about how and why I could be writing what I was writing, kind of disbelief. And many of us have come across that. But I mean, I just keep believing and hoping that whatever happens, we carry on.
Thank you. We have a question from Cara. Cara says, can you talk a bit about Paradise Garden?
Paradise Garden. The Paradise Garden is so much part of my background. The idea that there can be an absolutely ordered, beautiful space. Very often there'll be water courses running at right angles across the Paradise Garden. So it'd be a place of water and perfection. It was an attempt in the world to try to create the idea of paradise on earth. And obviously for me, it's a place that has been corrupted or ruined in so many ways, which is what we're doing daily. We're neglecting the beauty of the Paradise Garden that we have as a template in our mind, whether it's a real place, whether it's heaven or whether it's something else or not. This idea that we have in our mind of perfection, we daily undermine it and let it go to ruin. And so I've tried to suggest a lot about that in the poems that I've been writing. But you see Paradise Gardens in ancient miniatures. It's something that has carried through centuries. You see it in the weaving of carpets. You see it in literature. You see it in, I mean, everything from the stories of the Arabian Nights to the idea of paradise in a young man's mind or a young woman's mind. I hope that's answered a bit of it. But I mean, I think it's there in the background of our lives, the idea of the Paradise Garden. Certainly it's in mine. I live with it every day. I eat pomegranates out of it every minute. Why do I love pomegranates? It's the idea of, to me, the original apple was a pomegranate. The Eve's apple was actually a pomegranate, and the idea of the richness of that, the richness of the garden is something that, and the order of it, something that I would aspire to.
Thank you. Can I ask, we have another comment from Parv. Parv says, pomegranate and paradise. What a fab combination.
Yeah, the pomegranate image is again, another very strong one for me, and is tied up with the idea of the paradise garden. The fact that this hard rind, this unwelcoming rind, can hold all the beauty inside the jewels of the pomegranate seeds, and then all the myths that have been, have grown around the idea of the pomegranate. It is such a beautiful, striking image, and that's one that I've always loved and used.
Thank you. Can I ask, you deal with having a fairly public profile. You are a well-known poet. Has that ever become intrusive? Would you ever turn down opportunities because they might attract too much attention?
I'm an unknown poet. Poets are all unknown except for maybe a handful until they're dead. No, nobody knows me or recognizes me. I'm writing away quietly in my shell, and happy to have the privacy to do that. And I lead quite a private life. But no, I'm not being papped on the street. And I'm not careful about anything that I say. I don't have to be wary of being reported wrongly. My work is in my poems, and that's the truth of what's there. So, no.
Okay,
Maybe I
thank
could.
you.
Do we have 2 minutes for the end? And I'll read, these are the times we live. They'll say she must be from another country. Yeah.
Yes, can I ask you one more quick question,
Yeah.
which is from Estella. Estella says, which poets have inspired or are still inspiring you? And she also says, thank you for such a nourishing reading and conversation.
Thank you. Well, to start with, Gerard Manley Hopkins was my first love. Just the idea that you can make words do what he did, make language play and have fun with it. I mean, fun is a big part of my work. The fact that you can play with the words and language was something that got me started with poetry. And then every day I come across poets. Well, where do you start? John Agard, Carol Ann Duffy, I mean, other newer poets that I read, people I read when I'm judging a competition. There are poets that make me stop in my tracks, because I think, goodness, what is this voice? And I'm lucky that I have access to all this reading where I can hear these new voices. And not even just new voices, I mean all voices. Some of them completely unknown, but they're great poets very often. So I'm just excited by all the voices that I hear.
Thank you. I don't think there are any more comments, any more questions. There are quite a few comments saying thank you for a really interesting session. Fabs and Action Poets. Thank you so much. Philippa says, thank you so much. It's fascinating to hear your insights and to learn more of your writing process and sources of inspiration and the importance of being true to ourselves.
Thank you.
Also, some more comments coming in saying, thank you so much. Ruthio says, thank you so much for this lovely opportunity. Your poem Larkin resonates with being here with you today. To Kenneth Gabriella, we've had the honor of translating your collection, The Terrorist at My Table, into Spanish. And there are the times we live in,
I'd love to
There
hear
are
that.
the times we live in, it's wonderful.
I would love to hear those translations someday.
If you'd like to finish with the poem, I think it would be a
It's
lovely
sometimes
way
good.
to finish the session.
Thank you, Helen. It's sometimes good to sign out with a poem. So here's one. And it was written a long time ago, as you said. When I can't understand why they're burning books or closing borders, when they can't bear to look at God's own nakedness, when they ban the march, when they look away from the killing and pretend not to see the dead children, and I ask why, they just shrug and say, she must be from another country. When I speak on the phone and the vowel sounds are off, when the consonants are hard and they should be soft, they'll catch on at once, they'll pin it down, they'll explain it right away to their own satisfaction. They'll cluck their tongues and say, she must be from another country. When my mouth goes up instead of down, when I wear a tablecloth to go to town, when they suspect I'm black or think I'm gay, they won't be surprised. They'll purse their lips and say, she must be from another country. Maybe there is a country where all of us live, all of us freaks who aren't able to give our loyalty to lying fools, the crooks and thugs who wear the uniform that gives them the right to wave a flag, puff out their chests, put their feet on our necks, and break their own rules. But from where we are, it doesn't look like a country. It's more like the cracks that grow between borders behind their backs. That's where I live. And I'll be happy to say I never learned their customs. I don't remember their language or know their ways. I must be from another country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Imtiaz.
And thank you,
Thank
all
you,
of you.
everybody who's joined us today for this open book session in association with Stanza Poetry Festival. And thank you most of all to Imtiaz for such an inspiring session with us today.
Thank you.